The Western Conference Finals are finally here. Lakers, Nuggets. Do the Lakers have enough firepower to hang with the big boys number 1 seed, the Denver Nuggets? What went down last night? What happened to the Lake Show starting the game? Find out in the next edition of Sideline Sports Podcast. Welcome to Sideline Sports Podcast. If you're not on the sideline, it's not Sideline Sports Podcast. And we're back for another edition of Sideline Sports Podcast. I am the host, Alex Naveja, where if you're not on the sideline, it's not Sideline Sports Podcast. If you guys are enjoying all of the episodes we're putting on here, please give it a thumbs up. Comment down below what your Western Conference final predictions are, your Eastern Conference finals. Who do you think the NBA Finals matchup is going to be? Love to hear about that. Hit the bell down below, and while you're down there, hit the subscribe button down below. We are coming up firing with episodes last week. A lot of CIF Southern Section baseball and softball action. Had to take care of that business there last week, so decided to take the week off. But don't forget to follow us on all of our social media platforms as well. We'll have it down in the description below. We on Twitter, on Facebook, on TikTok, on Instagram. We're always coming at you with content. But without further ado, for you diehard Sideline Sports podcasters, this was during a dark time in a COVID where the man on my left-hand side, he is almost impossible to be able to get on, but he is mad in love about the NBA. I don't think anybody knows more about the NBA than this man himself, and a broadcaster himself. So definitely has been around the block in the broadcasting industry. Goes by the name of Dan Besbris with Sports Ethos. What is going on, Dan? It is so great to have you back on.
Alex, I owe you more apologies than I can count. Because every time I thought I had a window to do a hit, something, what was 2 weeks ago? I think my older son had a fever, so I couldn't jump on because he probably would have been rolling in complaining about, joint pain or whatever. And then, my life is, I like to say my life is like a 1,000-piece puzzle where none of the pieces actually fit together, but today somehow worked. So I'm so sorry it took me this long to get back on here. It's really cool to be back on the pod. And I'm stoked that it's happening with the Lakers in the conference finals. This is perfect timing.
You know what? I'm just stoked to have you on here. It's been such a long time since COVID was on, but you know what? With the Lakers officially through game 1, man, I feel like you and I just have so much to talk about. There's just so much to cover here in this one. But first, right out of the gate, what do you think of the Lake Show there in that game?
Yeah, we could get into all the nuts and bolts of it on Tuesday's ball game, but I honestly, I thought what the Lakers said post game summed it up about as well as anything that we could say, which is that they just didn't come out ready in the first quarter. They got blasted. Jokic had 12 rebounds in the first quarter alone. I think 5 of them were on the offensive glass. The Lakers couldn't get a stop, and when they did, they couldn't rebound. And then from the first quarter on, I thought they played a pretty damn good ball game, actually. They were just sort of hanging out like 15 to 18 points down for the bulk of like the second and third quarters. They finally got Denver to miss a few times. And look, we got things we can say about the Nuggets' difficult shot making in yesterday's ball game, but forget all of that. Like, Lakers would have had a shot. Lakers would have had a shot if Jokic doesn't hit that insane shot over AD at the end of the third quarter, or if Jamal Murray doesn't hit the one over LeBron partway through the fourth. Sure, that's 5 points, but there were way more than 5 points the Lakers gave up in the first quarter by just not being mentally ready for a playoff game. They thought they could coast into it, and Denver blasted them. And they were down double digits before you could snap your fingers, and they never really got all the way back from that, even though they made it a pretty tight ball game late. But the silver lining for Lakers fans is that for, the call it 36 minutes, because they were really quite bad the whole first quarter, but, more like 40, maybe 41 minutes of the ball game, the Lakers outplayed the Nuggets over that stretch. Their shot quality was better, but I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole yet. The real short version of yesterday was the Lakers just weren't ready to start the ball game, and that's the kind of mistake you basically only make once.
I think if the Lakers put up a better first quarter defensively, I think the Lakers could have won game one. And I think a lot of people are chatting that, hey, if the Lakers really want to beat the Nuggets, it's got to be like you're playing the Warriors. As far as like winning on the road, like you have to win at least one of these two games in Denver. You come back to LA, and if you can win, take a lead, go 2-1, and then you go back to Denver, and you'd be fine maybe losing that game. I'm talking about more of the winning approach aspect of it. I see this game maybe even going to game 7 just because of the amount of talent both of these teams have, the amount of offense these two teams have, the amount of defense these two teams have, and the streaky the teams that are playing right now. Like we saw it last night. I honestly thought the Lakers were going to come from behind and come up with a win, but I think it just comes out to show that, like, hey, Lakers, no sleeping in the first quarter. You got to come up firing. You got to get into transition defense. And I think that's what they were lacking a lot of. There was no transition defense. It was just Denver pounding and pounding and pounding going after the Lake Show yesterday.
Yeah, it would surprise the hell out of me, too, that's the thing that caught the Lakers by surprise, because the Grizzlies, what they wanted to do in the first round was run. The Lakers' main goal in that series was to get Memphis into the half court. That's how they won it. Same story with the Warriors. Don't let them get out and run. Don't let them get those open 3-pointers in transition. And that's the thing. I mean, you nailed it. You nailed it, Alex. That's the thing that shell-shocked the Lakers yesterday, was they just were not running at all. It was crazy. Like, even in the half court, they weren't running. Guys were just blowing right by them. Not necessarily to get to the rim on the first try, because Anthony Davis is there and he contests the first one, but second and third opportunities where you saw most of the Lakers starting 5 just standing still. And was it the altitude? I don't know. I wouldn't throw excuses on that. They just weren't ready to start the ball game. They were not running. They were jogging. They were standing still. And Denver built a lead that they didn't end up relinquishing the whole rest of the ball game. Yesterday was a great example. My wife likes to argue with me. She's like, why do you even watch the first 3 quarters of a basketball game? And I'm like, well, because every once in a while, the game is decided in the first quarter. This was a perfect example of that. But I do still think there's a bunch of silver linings. So whenever you're ready, we can get into those.
You know what? The floor is yours. The floor is yours, Dan. I mean, this is why we're here. We're breaking down game 1. We're breaking down what are we expecting for the remainder of the series too. I mean, we just got a taste of what it's going to be like. And just to even put this out there, the post-game press conferences was really interesting. The fact that Coach Darvin Ham was just like, I'm not worried. I trust in my guys, and I'm sincerely not worried about what our guys are capable of. And I do understand that with the fourth quarter. But again, you just got to come up firing and ready to play in the first quarter. I mean, you can't be playing basketball with a hunch of losing by 20 throughout the whole entire game, because in your workload, it's just so heavy. And I just want to put that out there before you take the floor. Dan, work your magic.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, I mean, of course, the energy expended to try to come back from those big deficits is crazy, especially when the Nuggets were hitting quite a lot, actually, the second half in particular, of difficult shots. Nuggets shots in the first half were really easy. The high probability of going down. But you look at some of the deeper numbers on yesterday's game. Nuggets shot something like almost 70% on long twos and in the mid 40s on above the break 3-pointers. So, like, all the things that the analytics department says, hey, these are the shots that we want to push a team into over a long term. It just didn't work in the Lakers' favor last night. Nuggets hit them. And that's going to happen every once in a while, especially with a really good team like the Nuggets. I want to make sure that this breakdown gives Denver all the credit in the world. I'm a guy who has a history in sports betting, and I was all over the Nuggets through everything that's happened in the playoffs so far, including I like them at their opening number in yesterday's ball game. because they've just been disrespected. And I don't know what the motivation is for that. Is it that people see Nikola Jokic and they see Jokic instead of seeing what he does? I don't know. But Denver was basically free money for a couple of series in the playoffs because nobody trusted them. No one remembered how good they were in 2020 when they had the Jokic Jamal Murray pick and roll to go to. That team was basically an Anthony Davis buzzer beater away from probably going and winning an NBA title. And I feel like no one ever talks about that. So this Nuggets team is extraordinary. And they're offensively, they are very difficult to stop. Best you can hope is to force them to slightly tougher shots. And then yesterday they happened to make those. But what I liked out of yesterday's ball game, for those that are watching this from the Lakers' perspective, the Lakers' shot quality almost throughout the entire ball game. I actually thought their shot quality, even in the first quarter, wasn't all that bad. Maybe too many three-pointers, kind of settling a little bit. But as the game wore on, you started to see LeBron getting the switch onto Jamal Murray, backing him down, getting Murray into foul trouble. You saw Anthony Davis with Jokic playing basically a full drop, which makes sense because the Lakers' shooting isn't all that great. But that allows the Lakers' guards to kind of push the defense back towards the bucket, go as far as Jokic will let them go. And then an easy shovel to Anthony Davis. I can't even, I mean, I have to go back to the tape, but AD had about, I think, 5 or 6 uncontested 8-footers in yesterday's ball game, and he hit almost all of them. So, like, from that perspective, the Lakers are getting a lot of looks around the rim. They started to get to the foul line from the third, basically mid-second quarter to the end of the ball game, more so in the third and fourth quarters. And that's a thing that they're going to be able to exploit throughout the series. You're going to see Denver make adjustments. They're going to try to keep Jamal Murray from getting switched onto LeBron. You'll see some things that like switch beaters, basically. So the Lakers are going to have to go to other looks, other ways to get those matchups that they're looking for. But from that perspective, Denver really can't stop the Lakers in this series. The other side of things, that's where things need to change. Do the Lakers have the energy, have the personnel to keep the Nuggets off the offensive glass, to keep the Nuggets from getting out and running for an entire ball game? I don't know the answer to that question, but if the answer to that ends up being yes, that's how the Lakers end up winning this series. So I thought quite a few silver linings yesterday, and just one horrendous quarter that doomed the Lakers from the outset. But I liked a lot of what they did from that point on. I mean, like throwing Rui Hachimura on Jokic ended up as a really good decision, and you might see some Wenyen Gabriel in that role for stretches, but it allowed AD to move off of Jokic and do his thing, which is basically guard like 80% of the floor himself. So, Alex, a lot of good stuff yesterday. The question is, can they keep it going, and what counters will they have when Denver makes their adjustments?
I think that's going to be the huge question moving down in the series here. I mean, Thursday, if you ask me, we were talking about it. It's a must win for the Lakers. The last thing you want to do is be 2-0 going back to LA. You're going to put yourself in a ton of pressure to have to win at home. I mean, the date better than I do. I don't think the Lakers have even lost a home game since maybe March. You could correct me if I'm wrong on that, but the Lakers are an extremely tough team to play at home as well. And the fact of the matter is, they were able to keep up with the Denver Nuggets in the back end of the game, which really showed the potential of the Lakers. And you prove a very good point here. Rui Hachimura, the fact that he was able to mark Jokic, the fact that he was able to keep up with him, that was going to be the biggest question mark. Who's going to step up from the bench when Anthony Davis isn't there on the floor? And who's going to be guarding the big fella himself? So he finished up with a triple-double, and they were able to at least keep him silent when they really needed to in the fourth quarter. I think moving down the line, I think if you could get them into foul trouble, because which play I'm going to be talking about here. The fact that Jamal Murray was close to getting his 5th foul on that Dennis Schroeder play where Jokic pushed down Schroeder, and the coach Coach Malone ended up challenging that play to save that 5th foul for Jamal Murray. That is huge. That is huge. And I think for the Lakers, if they can continue to play their game of getting into the paint, like Austin Reeves, like LeBron, AD, getting into the paint and creating these fouls, going to the free throw line and making them getting into foul trouble, That's just typical Lakers basketball, and you know it better than I do. That's just their game, and that's just the way they play. I think if they can do that and get them into the foul trouble, I think it really puts Coach Malone in a tough situation moving down the stretch in the series.
Yeah, I've been trying to sort of think through what it is that Denver does in the next ball game. It's weird to think that the Nuggets were up by 20 for large stretches of this ball game, ended up winning by 6, game that got tight down the stretch. Lakers actually, first of all, I really didn't like LeBron taking that pull-up 3 to try to tie the ball game. His three-pointer has not been dropping all year long, Bron. Take it to the rim in that spot. Get it to a 1-point game, or give it to someone who's been hitting a three-pointer lately, but whatever. Again, that shot is not the reason that they lost the ball game. But it's weird to think that it almost feels like Denver is the team that needs to make an adjustment for game 2, because if game 2 looks like the final 24 minutes of game 1, the Lakers win it in a run out. I think Coach Malone, I think Denver will have some pretty good ideas of what to do when Rui picks up Jokic, which is, you can almost bet that the Lakers are either going to start with that or go to it pretty early in game 2 because it was working well. They put Anthony Davis on Aaron Gordon, or they'll just put him on who the worst shooter is on the Denver side. So whether that's Aaron Gordon in the starting 5, or that would probably be Bruce Brown, who comes off the bench in their second unit. He's not going to be on KCP or Jamal Murray or someone like that, or certainly not Michael Porter Jr., because those guys can knock down shots. It allows AD to sag towards the paint a little bit, meaning, sure, Jokic can try to back down Hachimura because he has a massive size advantage there, but that brings AD into the mix. And I don't think Denver wants Jokic going against a double team that involves AD as the help defender. So Denver's going to find some other way to get Jokic into the paint, get him with the basketball, able to work without having to face Hachimura and Anthony Davis at the same time, or figure out a way to move Anthony Davis, kind of draw him away from the bucket. Maybe that means that they just don't have either of their non-3-point shooters on the floor. Remove all of the non-threats. That forces AD a little bit out towards the perimeter, kind of like what we saw the Warriors do. In that case, you probably still see him sag off a shooter and just say, look, like whatever, who's the guy that fills that role then for Denver? Is it Jeff Green? Is it Christian Brown? I still think you'd see AD sag off of those guys and kind of dare them to be the ones to beat you. But allowing Anthony Davis to be the help defender, that was a really key move the Lakers made. And I'm really anxious to see what Denver does to try to get Jokic easier looks. Because in the second half, his looks were not easy, not the way they were to start the ball game. But Alex, don't you find that kind of interesting that the team that won is probably the one looking at the paper and going, like, we got to make a switch for game 2, or this particular setup is going to end up with us getting our butts kicked?
I will agree with you on that point. I think if Denver was able to maintain that 20-point lead or even maintain that double figure of a lead, it would definitely be the other way around. The Lakers would have to be looking at the paper and be thinking, hey, what are we doing? Let's watch the film. We got to come up with some new plays to keep up with Denver. Otherwise, we're just going to continue to get slaughtered and they're going to just play their game. But right now, it's the pressure, I think, is on the Denver Nuggets right now. Just the fact that Lakers showed, hey, we're coming back, baby. We're the 8th seed, but it don't matter. It don't matter what seed we're in. We're coming back into this. And they were able to do that last night. And I want to go back to a point that you made as far as what the Warriors were doing with pushing AD up to guard behind the perimeter. I think that was something that worked really well for the Warriors. And I think if you are the Nuggets, if you want to beat the Lakers, if you can push AD defensively, get him out of the paint to guard behind the perimeter, you could probably get some looks with Jokic in the paint and get him away. With no AD in the paint, that's going to really elevate the game for the Denver Nuggets. But as the Lakers, if you really want to win it, they're going to have to keep AD down low in the paint where he's been. How many blocks did he get on Jokic yesterday? So he was able to guard the paint really well, able to protect his house around there. And a lot of the production comes from the paint from the Lakers. So I think defensively, Lakers got to just keep hanging around in the paint because they know they could dominate down low. And I think AD definitely won the battle in the paint against Jokic for sure.
Yes. I mean, certainly as the game wore on, there's two things that I look at on yesterday's ball game. One of them gives me hope. And that's the fact that the Lakers got basically whatever they wanted. it through the final 3 quarters of that game. And that the Nuggets really didn't over the final 2 quarters of that game. They really didn't get the shots that they usually thrive on. So that's the thing that gives me hope. The thing that gives me pause is that the Nuggets out-rebounded the Lakers 47-30 in yesterday's ball game, and that's an effort stat. You know, that's a 17 rebound advantage. You just can't give a team that many extra possessions and expect to win a basketball game. So for the Lakers side, you got to clean up the boards. For the Nuggets side, you've got to just clean up your defense because the Lakers still shot 55%. And that's with the first quarter where they couldn't hit anything. Like the Lakers shot, there was a stretch in the second half where the Lakers were shooting like 75%, and it was over 15 or 16 minutes of basketball. The Nuggets didn't force turnovers. Like there was just no real pressure on the Lakers offense. Meanwhile, on the other side, the Nuggets had to maintain their lead by hitting extraordinarily difficult shots. So that's what I'm looking at in this series. And then, tactically, this popped into my head, so I'm just going to keep rambling about it. Sorry, Alex. I'm just rolling.
It's all good. Handle.
So you brought up the Warriors, and one of the things that the Warriors can do that the Nuggets can't, and obviously Denver has a number of advantages the Warriors didn't have, but one of the things the Warriors can do that the Nuggets can't is utilize Steph Curry to force Anthony Davis away from the basket in a way that no other team in the NBA can do, because Steph is the best shooter on the planet and probably the best shooter ever. So when Steph comes around a screen, they just brought Anthony Davis's guy into the pick and roll with Steph Curry, knowing that whatever Laker was guarding Steph, could not go under the screen. So it forced either a switch or Anthony Davis kind of coming out far enough to contest a Steph Curry three-pointer from anywhere basically inside 27 feet. Like it pulled him so far away, and it created this wide open lane for the screener on the short roll. Denver can't really do that unless they remove one of their 2 best players from what they're doing on offense. Meaning, if they run a Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic pick and roll, the Lakers are going to keep Anthony Davis out of that pick and roll. They're going to leave him on, again, Aaron Gordon or Bruce Brown or Jeff Green or Christian Brown and say, look, AD, you're a roamer still at this point. You're just roaming the paint. Don't worry about those guys from the three-point line. Sure, you can move out in their general direction if they get the basketball, but your job is to be help defense on a Jokic Murray pick and roll, but you're not going to be one of the primary defenders in it. You're not guarding either of those 2 guys. The only way in my mind I see Denver able to bring Anthony Davis out to the perimeter is to bring his player into the pick and roll, but that means that either Murray isn't involved or Jokic isn't involved in kind of the traditional sense. They can run, dribble handoffs, things like that with Jokic that get Anthony Davis's guy in the mix. But again, he's just going to sag off of those dudes. There's no one on the Nuggets roster that can force the gravity to bring AD all the way out to the three-point line. Sure, they could run a Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon pick and roll. And even if the Lakers defender on Murray goes over the pick, Anthony Davis is still not going to have to come all the way out to the three-point line because they don't respect Murray's three-pointer, especially going to his right. That's the book on him. He shoots going left as much as they did on Steph Curry. So the Lakers have a little bit of an advantage there tactically, which, again, the coaching staffs of these 2 teams know way more about basketball than I do. So I am really interested. I'm beyond excited. I've loved these playoffs so much. I'm really excited to see what the 2 teams come up with for game 2 tomorrow. What is Denver going to do to get Anthony Davis out of his comfort zone? And what can they do on the other side to get AD out of his comfort zone? Because he was attacking relentlessly, and I know Denver won, and Jokic had this monster first quarter, and everybody's like, oh, Jokic is just eating the Lakers alive. But by the end of this ballgame, the Jokic AD thing was a pretty even match. AD had 40 and 10 with 3 steals and 2 blocks. Jokic had a triple-double, but a lot of it came in the first quarter. So what are they going to do? What's the move? I can't wait to find out. This is going to be, I think this series is going 7, and the playoffs as a whole have just been so good this year. This is easily the most playoff basketball I've watched in probably a decade, and I'm having a damn ball.
That's you and me both right there, Dan. I mean, you guys could see the matchup tomorrow going down. Tip-off time is 5:30 again, and game 2 will still be there at Denver. So make sure to catch the action there. Can the Lakers even up the series? You guys will have to find out tomorrow and tune in to that one, as that's all the time we have left here on Sideline Sports Podcast. Thank you all so much for tuning into this one. If you guys liked it, give the episode a thumbs up. Comment your predictions down below as far as who you think is going to advance, who's going to advance in the Eastern Conference side, who's going to the NBA Finals, and of course, hit the subscribe button down below. This is just the beginning, guys, the start of summer coverage. We still have baseball. We still have some other surprises that are coming up down the line. And once again, on my left-hand side, that is Dan Besbris with Sports Ethos. I'll put his Twitter down below. He is always on top of everything with NBA. He's got you guys covered. Make sure to give him a follow so you guys can stay up to date with everything he's got going on. But Dan, don't be a stranger, man. You got to come back. You got to come back on the podcast. I'm gonna make a reservation like a month in advance.
Yeah, you got to book an overnight with that's with. At some point, my children are going to be like 15 years old, and then they won't want anything to do with me, and then I can just do podcasts all the time. Nothing will ever stop me again. But that's like 9 years from now. Can you wait that long?
You know what? I'll wait that long. I'll absolutely wait that long, and I'll make a reservation with you as soon as we get off the show in 9 years. But you will definitely have you on for maybe some NBA draft, NBA free agency. So don't sleep on it, guys. Dan will definitely be back on the podcast. And once again, I am Alex Naveja from Sideline Sports Podcast, where if you're not on the sideline, it's not Sideline Sports Podcast. Hasta luego, everybody, and enjoy the NBA playoffs.